So looking back, right? So back in 2012, Harvard Business Review called data scientists the sexiest job of 21st century. Now with AI tools like Copilot, that can help write code and analytics and do analysis in minutes. How has that sexiness evolved? So share with us, what does a day in the life of a data professional look like now versus a decade ago? Perhaps, Lynn, you might want
Maybe
to
I'll
start
start first. Yeah. So hello. So what I observe for my data science team, in the past there used to be a lot of model building, training, requesting for data, cleaning data, fine tuning your model. But as AI advances, like with the presence of LLM right now, or even moving more generative AI towards even multimodal models, we realize that it has shifted from model building to model adapting. And we realize that a lot of time now is spent on model evaluation. What model is best used for this job, understanding the different models, their peculiarities, and then a lot about, hey, what is a creative way of using such models in our context. So if I were to have an example, typical classification models, we will use data, we will train the models, and then we do our classification. But we realized that actually using LLM, using Q&A, query and answering, you can get the same insights. And then even better, because in when there are new data being passed through, many a times like few shot or zero shot learning can be done. And so this is a shift that I noticed my data scientists doing from model building to really model adaptation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Lynn. And the article that you mentioned in HBR was also one of the first articles that I read, and it brought me into data science way back in 2014. So, but if you think about it, there was a lot of mystic nature towards data science and thinking the sexiest job of the 21st century. I was talking to Lynn earlier as well about this. So the problem now is there's not a lot of people to do the less sexy part of engineering and getting the data cleansed, getting the data indexed. So most of the work around modeling, like Lynn mentioned, has really changed. And a lot of people think that data scientists are not affected by all the automation that's happening. But the work that I was doing probably 2014, I don't have to do it now because you can write it in a single prompt, right? So the work of data scientists also being disrupted in a big way. So the real challenge is getting the data right in your organization. That's one very important thing. And you need a lot of good engineers in your company to do that. And once you have that, then doing the rest of the pieces becomes a lot easier.
So, perhaps just to build on that, was there a specific moment, you know, where you experience certain tools, AI-powered tools, and then you think that, wow, my job just changed fundamentally. Can you recall us any instances where you have experience with that Copilot, certain instances, and then you think that, wow, that's it?
One tool I really liked was Data Robot. That's something that I've used a lot in the past. That essentially, like this was pre all these LLM models that automated the modeling bit in a big way. And that one tool, like when I used it, I felt like probably the modeling aspect is going to fade away very soon, right? And that's one tool really changed. And the second was obviously the ChatGPT when it came out, 3.5 version came out. It really blew everyone's mind, and that was a big transformation moment as well.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of time my data scientists, one of the things that they hated doing is really the user research, right? Trying to understand how the users, how are they going to use the model, etc. Actually, with like Copilot or even with Gen AI, not to say that user research is not important anymore, but they are using Gen AI to help them ideate on what kind of users could be interested in this product, or even to ideate in terms of persona generation, and given this kind of age, what would they be interested in. So they are using a lot of these tools to help them do better in terms of user research. Yep.
So does your team require less hand holding right now?
I hope so. So I mean, not less hand holding, but then hand holding in different areas, lah, right? So I have to guide them. Hey, now that you're not doing model, really, what is your value? Your value is then in giving advice on why are certain models being used better, why are certain kind of prompts should be crafted in this manner.
And building the model is not the end state, right? So if you think about it earlier, you have this amazing chart where this was considered the end state by building the model, but you have a lot of steps after that. So building the model is probably, I would say, the start of day zero, in fact. And it's also become very easy to build a model these days. The real value is how do you activate? How do you build adoption from it? How do you convince your stakeholders, from business stakeholders, to understand what you're trying to tell them? These are all the bigger challenges. So simplifying from the whole modeling, so the data scientists can talk amongst each other, understand that your R squared is very high, all your metrics are very high. But how do you translate that R squared to something that the business can understand and use it? It's not only like if you build it, it stays in your slides or stays in your Python notebook, it's not enough. You have to really use the insight. That's when the impact happens.
Yeah. Right. So I think it's really true. So, a lot of times when we think about AI tools, we start to think about, the aspects that, AI start to, replace, which is, the code generation part, the model building part. And we think that, that is all that is to data science and analytics work, right? But in fact, if you look at the value chain over here, it's more than that, right? So now if HBR, can rewrite the headline today, so what would be the sexiest job, right?
We were just having a conversation earlier before we came on, and I was like pouring to him all my challenges in data management and how do I get people, how do I get proper even data architects, how do I find them? I think that will be the sexiest job upcoming, because now data scientists, well, I mean, without these people in place, your data science ain't going to work. Yeah.
So I think data science has been largely indexed towards modeling for a long period of time. And now the whole modeling has been done with a single query with an LLM, right? So if you have ChatGPT, you can run a regression model. If you have data, you can do anything from a regression model to even a sophisticated LSTM model you can even build. But where the challenge is in someone trying to abstract it, the 30,000 feet level, and looking at the entire organization from an enterprise architecture standpoint, where are we? Where the gaps are? Because traditionally software was built purely to serve its own software needs, but when it comes to data, you have to go across functions. So if I want to reduce my administrative spend in the company, then I have to know what's my supply chain cost, what's my finance cost, everything I have to know. And this is not something software are built for. And that's where the challenge is. Someone to see that complete end-to-end view is super important. That will probably be the next decade very important job.
Right. So hold that thought. All right. So we kind of understand, compared to a decade ago, kind of what has changed. All right. So now let's cast our mind forward. Right. Try to look ahead. All right. So what exciting opportunities do you see, AI creating in the data science and analytics value chain, and how might this opportunity transform businesses for the better?
So I think from what I see, how people are using data science and AI in the public sector, a lot of them are being used in service delivery. AI, or rather LM, are ridiculously good at retrieving similar past, similar context of what has happened before, or for a particular customer, what has he
Mundane, repetitive tasks.
Exactly. And then how now, knowing all this context, how do you craft a reply that answers to this person personally, and then also providing a very customized experience? So I see a lot of application in this area. Yeah.
And I think to me, the lines are blurring within. So I sort of have a framework for this if you think about it. So maybe 15 years ago, you had software, business, and data, three different entities. And slowly, software and data have come very close together. So now you don't build any software without having AI, for fancy word, AI within it. You sort of do that as part of your part and parcel. And the next frontier is business. And this is where a lot of strategy happens, a lot of marketing decisions happen. So how does data help drive decision making? And that is the next frontier for organizations in terms of where it's headed.
So help us understand a bit more, right? So in terms of opportunity, so let's say, just for an instance, right? So we can use synthetic data for those rare long-tail cases, in the data supply stage, right? So especially for public agencies, let's say who are kind of some public agencies who are data deprived, all right? Do you think that this question is probably posed to Lynn? Do you think that will present a good opportunity for the public sector to catch up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from where I see right now, a lot of ministries or even in the public sector, they are already using generative AI for data, synthetic data generation to augment precisely what we in the areas where there are low data count, and then to use synthetic data to generate for model training. We are seeing a lot of that right now.
What about?
So yeah, I think on the private sector, it becomes a little challenging for depending on the use case, right? So and this also depends on mindset, because if you see organizations are very used to deterministic mindset, where they expect certainty in terms of if there is an equation where you have x is equal to y, then they have to know clearly what is there in x so that it equals to y. But when it comes to a lot of LLM synthetic data, there's a lot of stochastic nature to it. So that mindset shift is not there yet. So you don't think in probabilistic terms, they think very deterministic terms. So that is the challenge in convincing them. So if I have a use case where I have, let's say, I know the data is not sufficient, I can easily generate more copies based on some method. And then if I build an algorithm that is very good, then the question is, can you replicate this? And this, if the data has some synthetic elements in it, then you can't really get in the bind. So it really depends on the use case. But if it comes to a computer vision problem where you have data, but then you can really apply. So it depends on where the use case is.
Right. So there have been complaints about a lot of like data science work about not being able to bring the model to production, right? For whatever reason, could be the complexity of the solution, and it requires cross-disciplinary kind of skill sets, right? So just trying to ask your opinion. So do you think agentic workflows, in trying to help the productization stage, is going to help organizations accelerate time to value?
I sort of believe in that in a big way. And the reason for that is a lot of the effort that goes after the model is usually change management, usually a lot of what sometimes people can call as grunt work, in terms of talking to people, engaging with them, making them get buy-in, trying to embrace the change. And this can be done very well with agentic workflows by using nudging as one concept as well. So there is a lot of opportunity there, and it's very hard to, if you have, typically you have a company, you'll have a product, you'll have one product manager doing it, but the product manager can only get to X number of people in a day. But if you have agentic workflows, you can do broadcast it to multiple groups and get feedback on the go, and also document it as well. So all of that is super powerful. So in fact, for one of the use cases we are trying where adoption is struggling, we are trying to apply agentic AI to, and also nudge the users to use more to see if it's going to help us.
So I want to build on the point about change management, right? So many a times I think the models not getting to be used is not so much a technical challenge, but it is really a people challenge, in the sense that does operators trust the model that you put in place? Do they trust the outputs? And with and without the model, actually that doesn't make a difference to the operator. So I think those are the things that we are paying a lot of attention to in terms of change management. How do I display the results in a way that the operators would trust them? Yeah.
And this also depends on the use case as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's a pricing use case where you build a better pricing algorithm, it's straightforward to say what's the value. But if you're doing something for marketing, then you expect someone to take action based on your insight. And that action, who has to take the action, they have to document what they're doing as well. And that's not always the case. And that's where your downstream impact becomes questionable, and you lose sight of what's happening, where agentic can also help in the future.
All right. Thanks for the insightful sharing. So, since we are talking about opportunities, of course, we have to talk about risk, correct? So similarly, so what potential risk could AI introduce if not properly managed? So are there particular industries or services that may seem more vulnerable to some of all this AI risk?
From where I see, I think similar to the point that I made just now, when you are in a place where you need high trust, like for example, when parents are facing teachers, you don't want parents don't want to face a robot to tell them how their childs are progressing. You want a expert to tell you how your child is progressing. So when in situations where you need trust, I think that is where those situations it is not advisable to use AI. I think another another risk that I also see is when you need accountability. So in cases where you need experts chop to say that this is the way to go, when you use an AI to replace that, if something were to go wrong, who are to
I
bear
think
that
this
risk? Yeah.
accountability is probably the biggest challenge, Dave. I think if you talk to any organization, this all it comes down to. So I remember a debate I had with one of my marketing leads where we were recommending a pricing algorithm to them. They had the usual pricing algorithm, but the question to me was, if it fails, will you take the responsibility? Right? And then I was not able to give that answer because I don't run the business essentially. I'm supporting them. So this accountability also comes down to building the trust, and that person, whoever you're building for, marketing, supply chain, whoever that is, that leader should also be enabled with AI. So if they are also AI enabled, they see the value that what we are doing, then it becomes an overarching transformation. Otherwise, it stops there, and it's a good model on paper, but there's no very hard to realize the value.
So maybe to add on, I think one area that I see, or rather a question that I always get from my bosses, right? Hey, we are paying so much for Copilot, we are paying so much for AI productivity. Hey, what are the benefits? Then I always report to him that, oh, I saved 2 hours doing this, average employee saved 3 hours doing that. They were like, okay, very good. But do I see manpower savings? No, I don't see any manpower savings. We got workforce productivity, but we don't see any manpower savings. So it gives sometimes they also have this question about value realization, right? Whether AI, does it really bring about value for the organization?
And this is a tough one to do, and there is no one right answer to it. And I've had different frameworks in my different organizations I've been part of. Ultimately, it all comes down to your top level leadership and the buy-in and the vision they have. If they have the right vision and the right ownership, then everything falls properly. Otherwise, it's a hard one to really do. Yeah.
So the thing is, right, so if you focus again on the value chain, all right, so assuming that we are just going to automate the workflows, right, so how confident are you, right, right, how confident do you think we can encode, our context, our goals and trade-offs, as policies to govern, what action might your agent take, let's say. So what do you think? So how confident are you in thinking that, well, can we fully encode the context? Can we fully encode the goals? Can we fully encode the trade-offs, in the workflows so that we can kind of guide the agent to take proper actions? How confident are you?
It's going to be evolving, but I sort of believe in this, lack of better term, human in the loop approach, where essentially, if I have to think about a future, you have like an agent for every employee, essentially, who can do something for that employee, and that probably 80% is done by it. There's always be a 20% or 30% thing that needs additional human input and the decision making, because it's very hard. If you look at constraint optimization problems, very hard for any AI agent to take all decisions with the information it has. And as humans, it's also like I was reading somewhere that we I think Jan Likun also mentioned this. From childhood we have been getting a lot of data, right? And the amount of data that we have now, and the senses we have now, is very hard for an agent to replicate it. We are in the second or third year of talking about it, right? It will come at some point in time, but at least now human in the loop and giving an augmented approach would be the right way to go about it.
This is precisely the message that I always give to my management as well, in the sense that AI is here for augmentation and not for replacement. And it is a very similar point because, in a sense, okay, from an employee point of view, when you ask them to use I think their first question is, will I get replaced if I use AI? And a lot of change management is required that no, this AI is here for you to do your job better. It's to augment you, to help you, and not to replace you. So that is a kind of message that we are always providing for our management. So
So let's shift gear a little bit, right? So Ram, you mentioned that that there are opportunities where you can use AI to help in the adoption and change management. All right. So as AI reshape the roles throughout this value chain and automate, for example, just routine analytics tasks, right? So which skills are emerging as truly essentials for data professionals?
Yeah, I think the ability to be multidimensional is very important. So I think you have the classic Venn diagram of data, domain, and you have programming. These three, right? So most data professionals are very good on the programming side and data side. Domain is something they're learning, and you also had upskilling programs where you have domain experts trying to learn about data. So the real skill would be someone who can translate, who can switch gears depending on who they talk to, right? And that to me is like a go-to person if you can get that. Very hard to get, to be honest, and it takes years to do it. That's why I sort of tell I'm a practicing data scientist, because you can never be for sure that you have learned everything. There's so much change happening, and that to me is probably the north star in terms of what I would see for someone in the future.
yeah, so when we have a chat earlier, I was asking him this question: is it easier to train a data person to be more business centric, or is it easier to train a business centric person to be more data trained? I think the answer he gave me was
Data person to be.
more
Yeah,
more business.
I'm
Yep.
probably a bit biased, but that's how you have most organizations, right? So and I think we were talking about it as well. It's very easy if you think about it. Every domain is a data problem, and that's why easier if you have the strong data skills, you can learn the domain rather than the other way around. It's not impossible, but it's just easier from this way out.
So from this end, actually, two additional data skills that I recommend like data-centric person to take on will be design thinking. How do you design a system such that people will really use it? I mean, ultimately, when you develop the model, you want people to use it. So how do you practice design thinking such that the person at the end of the day, they will want to use your model day in, day out? I think another soft skill that I would recommend the data-centric person to take on is system thinking, in a sense that how do you know this problem is even worth solving? Is this the root issue that you want to tackle? So and because if when you are tackling the root issue, naturally people will want to use your model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also in the future. I also see another view of, I think back in the old days of software, you have quality assurance as a very important. So the importance of evaluation, auditing, and quality assurance of these models are going to be key as well in companies. So probably there'll be small divisions for that as well. That's something I'm seeing coming back.
So I'm going to be the devil's advocate here, right? So don't you think that with advances in AI right now, they are likely going to be capable of doing all the technical heavy lifting, and then wouldn't that be better for someone who is not so well versed in the data side, to know enough or to know sufficient, like for example what data can do, right, and then instruct that agent to help them complete the job.
Yeah.
So
I wish these agents are available now, but uh, probably a future view, Dave. I sort of feel that, because still there is a lot of complexity in understanding data in organizations. You might have a data set, you might have terabytes of data in your company, but doesn't mean that it's indexed, it's documented, the clarity is there, and that's where most effort goes now. So if we go to a world where data is perfect in a way, then what you say would definitely be true in that world.
Yeah, I think just earlier we were chatting a lot about data management. Although this is a data science talk, we were chatting a lot about data management because that is really the key challenge that a lot of companies are facing right now. So even down to data governance, data architecting, if you don't get those right, I think there's no chance for data science.
And the reason
Yeah.
is something I mentioned before, right? So every data comes from a software tool or some ERP tool or software tool, a website from which data comes. And none of these websites are designed to also account for the system. And most data teams are trying to do at a system level, and that's when it falters. It's very hard to make that sense. Yeah.
all right, then in that case, then how would you deploy your data teams differently? you know so you mentioned that, we still need to take care of our data, all right? Just make sure that, they are sound, that fits into, your end decision outcomes. Right, so with AI in the picture, is that going to affect how you deploy data teams?
So if you have to divide the spectrum, right? So the first initial strategy and data supply, that's where you see a growth because the number of data you're getting is increasing. The middle area is getting crunched in a big way, and the bottom part is expanding rapidly, right? So if I have to deploy data teams, I would deploy in the front end of the cycle and back end of the cycle, where we have more to data collection and strategy and formulation of problem statements, and more for activation adoption. And in fact, this is the same thing I tell my teams every day as well, right? The more engagement we do with the business, the more value we can really generate from our products. And if you purely think about the technical aspect, you might even have a very simplistic model or a simplistic dashboard, but if it has better engagement, you're creating more value.
I will have the same answer in the sense that the data teams really need to be closer to the business teams right now. So no longer is the day where data teams just sit at the back end doing their code, staring at the computer. It no longer holds anymore. They have to go meet users, talk to people, understand their problems, and then give them a solution that can meet their needs.
So sort of like a consulting lens, if you
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about it. That's how you should try to equip yourself.
So I think that is very true. Right. So my only concern, is that, as data team, start to focus more even end to end, right? Taking heavier roles, in how you frame the problem, prioritizing use cases and even adoption, right? And then when things go wrong, who is going to take the blame? Is it the data team who is responsible for, implementing the guardrails, fail to implement proper guardrails, not specifying the right metrics, so if things go wrong, is the data team going to be the first to get hanged?
I think it's in the organization context, there is usually a RACI matrix
Yep.
that they use for this to understand who exactly is responsible and who is exactly accountable for it. But this is again sort of builds back to the accountability problem that we talked about, right? And this comes back to, like, I'm not sure how many of you know, but DBS's bank's first data transformation was a failure, and they struggled for 3 years until 2015 when they got things right. And the second time they tried, they were able to be successful. And that was purely because of the CEO's push towards the data being the important part of the organization. And transformations like that happen only when it comes top down, unfortunately. Very hard to do bottom up. So if you have that comfort to fail fast and learn fast, then you are in a better place to really transform end to end.
All right. So with all this, so what steps do you think organizations can take to build, stronger collaboration between human, or rather data professionals and AI systems?
So I think I mentioned earlier, culture shift is very important in a sense that again AI is not here to replace people, but it's really to augment people. Getting this message right to the employees, to the people, is very very important for them to adopt AI. Then secondly would be the process shift. If you get the AI just to automate what you do, I think that is a waste. AI can do so much more things. So to give an example, like recently, my team and I, we were thinking of how do we get how do we build our people out? How do we train our people? The typical way of doing so will be to go for courses, and take notes, come back, share with the team and all. But recently, we are exploring a way where we get a SME to come in and talk. We use a transcribing tool, record what he has to say, put all these notes. Every week we will get SMEs to come in, and we becomes a knowledge base, put it in a chatbot. Anytime I have a question, at least I know there is a place for me to ask, and that is just in time learning.
I think and everyone is approaching this differently, and culture plays a very important role. But to me, it's also about you have to have a bias to action to do things, and that is critical for any transformation that involves data. So a lot of the companies are like, now you have Copilot in most companies because of Microsoft's help. So that's a great platform to start somewhere. Or even the thinking about having good pivot tables, having good Excel analysis. Even this is a good starting point, and that can lead you towards a data journey in the future.
So, so the thing it's, increasingly, if we are to let AI handle, some of the routine tasks and also to aid us in some of the stages in the value chain itself, do you think it helps, to kind of shift the design to be more verifiable, to enable forensics? Because at the end of the day, if things go wrong, it's actually hard to pinpoint. All right. So do you think that, increasingly data scientists, even when they design certain solutions, you need to, design for verification up front?
I think absolutely. You can also we covered this point as well. Explainability is something that takes precedence over sophisticated models, right? So how easy it is to explain to someone who does not have any background in data science, that approach is the best. And this is where I talked about auditability of models, right? This also starts soon, where you have a lot of models in your organization to do the same task. You have to decide on what's best, and that is an important decision as well. And that's used, and there forensics is also covered essentially. So that's where the future is going.
So I also noticed a lot of the apps with AI embedded, like even if you were to do your retrieval augmented generation, many times it is a requirement you have to put in your reference. So that is a way of designing trust into the AI products that you deliver. And I think there is increasingly, I mean, if you really want people to use your product, you build in trust within your product for people to use.
Right. So, then how do you think AI is, influencing the overall structure of the data teams and perhaps, the career paths? So do you think that it's still gonna be, data scientists, senior data scientists, principal data scientists? So how do you think, the career path is gonna change?
Yeah, I think slowly you can see that I sort of divide this into digital native companies and non-digital native companies, or traditional enterprises, if you were to put a bucket. So in places like Uber, Airbnb, for example, there is a data team under every function. Finance has a data team, supply chain has a data team, logistics has a data team, because the company runs with that Uber app as an overarching digital platform. Within that, you get data across the board. But when it comes to traditional enterprises, you typically have a central data team, which is also getting slowly converted. So there is a different models to it. The one I like is hub and spoke, where you have a central data team that takes leadership on the big things, but you also have like a spoke model at every market or every region, which can help you to do some of the local tasks. So that sort of approach will work best. But this is still evolving, and I sort of see this where every function would take own responsibility for their own data, and they would start delegating this to their data teams itself. That's how I see the future to be.
So interestingly, I've been seeing a lot of AI apps that comes out, or even AI system that are developed without any data scientists. At the back end, they call LM Bedrock, and that you can use AI, right? So I do notice that in terms of my data scientist career, a lot of them are going into AI engineering. How do you ensure the answers from AI that is being served is accurate, is also of low latency, of good performance? And this is the where I see the field of data scientists going into. They are really going into AI engineering, or even understanding backend engineering, front end engineering, in order to have a product that helps the users.
So do you think, there's going to be a role called evaluation engineer, who focuses on ensuring, that your model behave as it is, who is responsible for ensuring the quality of your data sets, who is capable of, instrumenting all these guardrails, specifying your policies? Do you see a position, do you see such a role emerging in your data team?
Yeah,
As an
absolutely.
eval
Yeah.
engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is part of the quality assurance thing I mentioned before. right? So it's going to be hard. That there going to become a time where building a model is going to be so easy when your data is completely ready and available, right? Then your whole real work happens after building the model and evaluating how good or bad it is. So which is what Lynn also covers as AI engineering, which goes further into ML ops and running the operations itself, essentially. And that's where the lot of work is being happening now. Yeah.
Okay. So, so perhaps let's visit, the live poll that we have. All right. So, basically, I have curated these three questions to poll the public. The first question being, how heavy are you leveraging AI for data science and analytics work? So as you can see here, not quite. So what do you think might be so based on your experience, your data teams, are they using sparingly like this, or they are using quite a fair bit for specific tasks?
Yeah, I think this is also a question I ask my data teams as well. Like as data teams, we should be at the forefront of using data to run our operations, right? If you think about it. So no, people are always comfortable with their Excel files and with their analysis they can do there. It sort of gives an illusion of control in terms of what you can do. But slowly, I think we are also using the tools that we sort of promote in a way, right? So we'll probably be these two buckets, at least for my organization, I can say that. And we're slowly moving. In fact, our Copilot usage is like almost 99% of the company is using it, which is quite good. At least for transcribing a meeting note, which is a basic thing you can do. Even that is being used, which is good. So that's the starting point, but you slowly promote them to go to the right side. Yeah.
What about Lynn? Your experience, is it resonating with you?
Yeah, I think if the bulk of the people are really analysts, I would assume their core belief is that they need accuracy in the analysis. And hence, I can imagine using AI is not giving 100% analysis as compared to their own working. So this is not unsurprising. Yeah, so even in my data team, like sometimes like what Ram said, right? I got to encourage, hey, are you AI using AI for this? Do you think that you can use I mean certain components, of course not all your analysis, right? To really like red team your analysis, or even to think about how you can use AI for user research as well. Yeah, so it needs to do some educating also lah for our folks.
Next question. So where could AI create the big wins for data science and analytics? We see a lot on interesting on problem framing and success metrics. Well, I thought it's going to be all the routine stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I think these days planning and problem framing is done a lot with AI, primarily because you have LLMs. It's become quite an easy
Yeah.
thing that you can do. And this is something that's a bit of a counterintuitive thing, I feel. Like anything you do with AI, you're also losing that skill in a way, if you think about it, right? How many people can really know how to read a map now, right? So, but do you want your company to do this side in terms of which is your core strategic value to done with AI, or do you want to do other aspects of it, right, which is more routine? So that's an important question you ask, and from a strategy standpoint, where do you want it to be? So ideally, if I would prefer this to be less and this to be more, but this is the response.
Yeah, similar. I would have assumed that data supply will have a lot more returns than the rest of it. Yeah, I agree with that. In terms of like, especially in terms of adoption and change management, actually, there's a lot of things that LM could also prompt, give us some marketing ideas, how to relate to users better, how do we craft messages to allow people to accept these AI solutions better. I thought that we could see more improvement over there.
Okay, the last one. Interesting, right? So your main concerns about AI in data science and analytics are wrong conclusions, followed by privacy and data misuse. So, any thoughts around?
Yeah, this wrong conclusion is something I can talk about, and this usually happens quite a bit in organizations as well. You sort of have an end goal, and you already know what end goal you want to achieve, and you sometimes use data to get to that end goal, right? And that's when you sort of get this wrong conclusion issue. And this is something I feel from an ethical standpoint. It's very important for data teams to be unbiased and to be someone who can bring clarity to the organization. To not be the, because you always have functional goals and you are pushed in terms of priorities. You have to increase your sale numbers, reduce your cost. You always have these priorities which pushes you. But as data team, you should be unbiased and try and ensure you bring the clarity and not lead to this wrong conclusion scenario.
Yeah, I could say something about the privacy aspect. I think coming from the public sector, privacy is very, very important to us. A lot of engineering work actually has been invested to ensure that the models that we use in the public sector is protected, locally hosted, so that in terms of any data leakages or what, I mean, it won't happen to us. Lah.
So we take care of privacy as well, but there are a lot of tools we use for that. So use a lot of masking tools and other things like that to ensure we are still getting the value from the data, but we don't expose any private information.
Okay. Yep. So it's interesting because I was thinking the main concerns could I was probably not like privacy misuse, but more about like lacking context in workflows. I thought that might be in the top, or is the top four at least. All right, because it's actually hard to encode all the context that is available and that is like innate to certain humans when they are exposed to certain business environment. The ins and outs. It's just difficult to encode that even as a code policy as a code. All right. So I thought like that might be a concern there. All right. Okay, so thanks Lynn and Ram for the insightful sharing. So we will open the floor for Q&A. Any burning questions that you might have? Is your time? Yes?
What's the difference between a pricing model that's done by Excel and a pricing model done using AI? I'm just trying to understand what's the impact of that.
Yeah, I think it's just driving a Toyota versus driving a Ferrari. That's the difference. So it's still a car. It's still analysis, but just the range in which you do is different, and the sophistication is more. So you expect it to be more robust, but it's not always true. Just because it's not, I would not say just because you do it in Python or you use a cloud environment, your model is better than an Excel model. But simply from a tool capability standpoint, that's a difference. And Excel has data limitations as well. You can only do so many number of rows. When it comes to cloud, you can do a lot in terms of size of data. That's the other bit. So that's the comparison I can say between the two.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, at least at Suntory, maybe you could shed more light in terms of how data science and analytics is used. I'm not sure, as part of like, let's say, product formulation or like a pricing strategy or stuff. Yeah. So shed more light.
Yeah. So I think I'm new to the organization. So I'm only 2 months into the role, so I cannot share a lot in terms of how we are using it. But purely from an operational standpoint, we try and help improve the way we work. So in terms of the way we do our supply chain, the way we do our pricing, our promotions, all of that, we try and do as a data problem.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So Mr. Ram and Ms. Lin. So can I ask specifically about the change management? How AI actually helps in change management as well as the storytelling and buy-in. So those are the three very important factors that I'm right now encountering my data science work. So it's usually quite tricky. I never actually before this talk, I never thought I could use AI to assist me in this. I'm just trying to use the personality to try to get the buy-in from the management, but it was quite heavily depend on personal characteristics. So whether I'm skilled in that. If not, then what AI can help me in terms of this.
Yeah, I could imagine specifically to this case, right? How you could use, say, LLM is to really prompt it to say, hey, I'm going to give a presentation to my management about this product or this model. from a management standpoint, maybe if you know the MBTI of your management, you could also put in, with this kind of characteristics, what do they usually look out for? What is the top 10 kind of problems that they're trying to solve that my model could help them in? So I think having this kind of prompting, getting this kind of ideas, it will help to refine your pitch a little better. And then I will come also from this is one project, right? Many of the times when we do data science and AI, we are also doing products. So in terms of selling this product, how do I get to the masses? How do I know what would people use this product for? This is where we also use AI to help us think about it, brainstorm with us. How will people perceive this product? And if I were to want to generate marketing materials, typically we also try to use LLM through prompting to see whether they can help us come up with any eye-catching captions and emails or even telegrams to boost the awareness of the product.
Yeah. So I think a lot of change management also comes to more efficient communication, right? So a lot of corporate communication can be done with LLMs, and that's where it can really help. It can be as simple as doing a launch message. Can be as simple as whenever there is a change in your algorithm or in your product, you are communicating it in time. So this can all help improve engagement in a big way. Small things, but help improve in a big way. Earlier, you had to have someone work with your corporate communications team, build a draft email for them to do. So all of this can be done with a click of a button. And that's when you can do this thing more efficiently.
Right. I'd just like to ask also, like, how do you evaluate the quality of the AI model you are using, like for your specific use case? Because I can imagine, like, let's say for a specific segment, it could be like pricing systems, or maybe in government, it could be like, let's say, I don't know, like maybe something related to, let's say, tabulation like CPF like contribution.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how do you
Yeah, I think it's quite a broad question. So if you try to go deeper into area, then you can give you an evaluation accordingly, right? For example, if I do a churn prediction algorithm, then my goal is to help have a high AUC from a classification standpoint, but I should also have business standpoint. I should have customers come back, right? Because the churn has to prevent people from churning. So you have both a business goal and also a model goal from an analytical standpoint. So you usually have both these goals that you try and frame, and you get convinced the argument that why you should invest. Because the goal is not only to model the data, but also to drive the transformation with the business. So you have to have both the goals.
Yeah, so I have a similar experience in the sense that when my data scientists, when they want to measure the model performance, a lot of time they only look at the technical aspects, like how accurate is my model, etc. Usually my advice to them is like not only looking at the technical aspect, but what is the impact of the model that you're trying to bring to them. Sometimes 80% accuracy could be good enough for the operations. We don't need to invest that additional effort to get it to 90%.
True, true. Yeah. And this is something that's very common, right? It's a fallacy. So everyone who studied ISS and done the course would know getting the first 80% is probably the easy. The last 5%, 10%, if you do any research paper, the difficulty is huge. And whether you want to do that, whether it requires that effort, it depends on your business case. Yeah.
All right. Perhaps one last question. Anyone? You have the privilege of that last question. Nope. All right. Okay. Thanks, Lynn and Ram, for the insightful sharing, and thanks, audience, for the. So to wrap up, right? So looking ahead, right? So AI is just going to enable organizations to make even more and quicker decisions. I think everybody here kind of agrees with that. All right, but the key challenge will eventually converge, to ensuring, the quality, and the trustworthiness of all these decisions at scale. Right, so eventually companies are going to face this. Right, I'm going to churn a lot of decisions. I'm going to make them quickly. But how do I make sure that those decisions are actually right and trustworthy? All right, and then when you think about this, what does this mean for our data science education? Right. So the good news is we are strengthening our curriculum, right, to help our learners to gain deeper business domain expertise, and also to help them, frame problems, design, evaluate, and orchestrate solutions. All right, more critically from like what Ram and Lin has been saying, from business standpoint, from human centricity standpoint, and governance standpoint. Okay, so so this is actually to help our learners to become effective decision partners for organizations to safeguard the quality of their data-driven decisions. All right, so I hope that you can stay tuned to ISS courses. All right, so increasingly for data science, we are trying to strengthen this aspect. All right, so can I request that you give us your feedback for this session? Thank you so much.